Hello folks, I am the Bitter Klinger, and I've been a PC gamer for 3 decades now. I put together my first DOS-based personal computer in 1988, and I specified DOS-based PC because the most popular personal computers back in those days were the Apple II and the Commodore 64. For example, when Electronic Arts released the original John Madden Football in 1988, they released it for the Apple II, Commodore 64, and DOS-based PCs. Now this isn't just trivia. This is about a distinction that started to form in the gaming industry around this time. You see, Coach Madden wouldn't allow his name to be used on any football game that didn't have the full count of 11 players per side for every play of the game. This put EA in a bind because there was no way they were going to get that to work on any consoles available at the time. So they were forced to release this game only to PC users in 1988, which they hated because EA would never trouble themselves to release a game exclusively to the PC market. Proof of point, this is the first and only time in the history of the Madden franchise that EA would skip annual releases of the game. No Madden game was released in '89, and once the new 16-bit Genesis and SNES were available in 1990, EA just ported the existing PC version of the game to console and released that. PC gamers wouldn't see a new Madden game until the next year, along with every other platform. PC gamers have never been, and never will be, important customers at Electronic Arts. This is why PC gamers are such rabid fans of PC-only, or at least PC-first game studios. We routinely see video games with controls and mechanics limited to the capabilities of the latest console generation. Bethesda Softworks had done a few games for the Amiga and Atari consoles, but they became one of the first PC-only / PC-first game studios. They were soon joined by id Software with titles like Doom and Wolfenstein 3D, which were designed and developed for the PC. But in 1994, after Blizzard Entertainment decided to stop screwing around with console games, they released a real-time strategy game for the PC platform called Orcs vs. Humans. The only PC-exclusive games to sell more copies than Orcs vs. Humans that year were Doom 2 and Microsoft Flight Simulator. Of course, the top 10 list of best-selling games across all platforms was dominated by console games, to the point that no PC-only title had ever come close to appearing on the list. But that was all about to change. When Blizzard Entertainment invited a bunch of PC gamers to BlizzCon for the purpose of announcing a mobile-exclusive Diablo game, it was the height of irony. What makes it so ironic is the original Diablo game was the first exclusively PC game to ever break into the top 10 bestseller list across all platforms. So it was a bunch of PC gamers playing Diablo that made Battle.net the largest online gaming service in the world back in 1997. It was a bunch of PC gamers that made StarCraft the most popular real-time strategy game ever released. And of course, it was a bunch of PC gamers that made World of Warcraft the most popular subscription-based MMORPG in the world. Now, none of that means that Blizzard can't make console games. They have made console games. That doesn't mean they can't make mobile games. They have done. But there was a good 10 years or so where Blizzard had their finger on the pulse of PC gaming, and PC gamers loved them for it. And then Blizzard Entertainment, which was owned by Vivendi Games, merged with Activision for the purpose of trying to be more like Electronic Arts. They want to be like Electronic Arts, who have absolutely no regard for PC gamers, because PC gamers don't help EA attract new investors. Blizzard wants to be like Electronic Arts, who have declared that single-player games are finished, because single-player games don't help EA attract new investors. The audience that companies like EA and Activision are trying to please is not gamers, it's their investors. And it's not only publicly traded companies that have investors. Privately held companies like Bethesda's parent company, ZeniMax Media, they also have investors who pump hundreds of millions of dollars into the company. Now, the trouble with investors is they will impact a company's products, and they don't have to directly meddle in operations to have that impact. Companies will change their behavior, including product designs, to make themselves more attractive to financial investors. And what investors find attractive these days is the mobile market, esports, and digital revenue, which includes microtransactions. So if you're a big game company looking for investors in North America, you're probably going to need something called digital revenue on your financial report. This is probably what's driving Bethesda to make mobile games and multiplayer online games. Though those types of games clearly aren't in their development wheelhouse, it does support the greatest opportunities for digital revenue. It's also why we're seeing the trend of bigger game publishers moving away from Steam and selling games through their own launchers. Every game they sell directly means they don't have to pay a cut to Steam, which increases their digital revenue. Now, EA breaks out their digital revenue and specifically lists microtransactions under the name Live Services on their financial reports. Activision reports their digital revenue as a single line item with microtransactions, subscriptions, and digital downloads all lumped together. The point is, decision makers at companies like Bethesda, Activision, and EA are going to make product design choices they believe will improve the numbers on these financial reports. They're going to design games and implement game mechanics for the specific purpose of making these numbers more interesting for investors. For example, when investors are disappointed in the revenue numbers for Destiny 2, does Activision think of new game mechanics to make it appealing to gamers? No, they implement game mechanics that create more opportunities for digital revenue. And this appeal to investors isn't just impacting gameplay, it's also impacting quality. You know, it used to be that beta testers were selected based on their knowledge of the subject matter and participation in the community, perhaps even their loyalty as a fan to the game. But that doesn't increase any of the interesting numbers on the financial report, so nowadays companies just sell access to beta. Unfortunately, that model attracts a higher proportion of players to the game that aren't particularly interested in finding bugs, documenting the steps to recreate the bugs, and submitting the evidence back to the developers through the proper channels. And it's these changes in the target audience that creates the disconnect between game companies and game consumers. Gamers want a satisfying gaming experience, and game publishers are trying to deliver an experience that satisfies their investors. That's the disconnect. That explains how you end up with a product manager at Blizzard announcing a mobile-exclusive Diablo game that will expand their audience, increase digital revenues, and attract more investors. And then be shocked when their gaming audience doesn't jump out of their seats and cheer the amazing accomplishment of designing a product that checked so many boxes on the financial report. These so-called entitled babies were supposed to just shut up, pull out their cell phones, and assume the position assigned to them in the great virtuous cycle at Activision. See, you people who went to BlizzCon ruined their big presentation. You ruined it by thinking that presentation was meant for you. But it wasn't meant for you. It was meant for their investors. And the investors just watched Blizzard get booed off the stage after announcing their biggest new product to the most energized consumers for that product. Now I know what you're saying. Wait a minute, Bitterklinger. That wasn't the target audience. Those were mostly PC gamers. Yeah, you and I know that, but that's just us in the broader gaming community talking to each other. Your typical investment analyst isn't making that distinction. We all look alike to them. They don't know the difference between consumers in the gaming market. The reason they invest in Activision is they trust Activision to have its finger on the pulse of the gaming market and know best how to sell what product to which customer. And that little Diablo debacle at BlizzCon has shaken that trust. So when the executive producer at Blizzard addressed the backlash, did he try to reinsure the PC gaming audience? No! He threw us under the bus when he said, "We expected some backlash. We saw a similar response when we announced that we are bringing Diablo to console, and we saw a similar response to the announcement of Hearthstone." This is Blizzard trying to do damage control with their investors. They're reassuring their investors that they expected a negative response and explaining to them that it was the audience that's out of touch with the market, not Blizzard. They continued damage control with their investors the next day when the executive producer said, Many of us over the last years have shifted from playing desktop games to playing many hours on... I'm trying to get my narration recorded here, and I can't even read this man's quote with a straight face. Oh, Lordy. Many of us over the last years have shifted from playing primarily desktop to playing many hours on mobile, and we have many of our best developers now working on new mobile titles. I mean, some of that schlock might even be true, but ladies and gentlemen, this is the voice of desperation. Don't worry, Mr. Investor, we're committed to mobile. We love mobile. In fact, we don't even like playing games on any platform but mobile. Our best developers are on mobile. Please, Mr. Investor, mobile, 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 mobile. For crying out loud, man. Show some self-respect. Sheesh. Alright, I think we have a pretty clear pattern here from Activision. When gamers aren't happy with Destiny 2, it's, yeah, we'll look into it. When investors aren't happy with Destiny 2, they respond right away with the changes they'll make to the game for the investors. When Blizzard says they expect their fans to be unhappy with the Diablo Immortal announcement, nothing. No plans to address it at all. And when their little show they put on for their investors goes south, it's full damage control with no less than the executive producer screaming mobile, mobile, mobile. This clearly tells me that Blizzard Entertainment is lost to us. That knowledge, that gut feeling, that finger on the pulse has either left the building or has been assimilated into the investor-driven corporate priorities at Activision. This fact is observably true for those willing to be honest about what they're seeing. Companies like EA, Ubisoft, and Activision are happy to extend sales of their console games to PC consumers, but the distinct PC gaming culture and PC gaming consumer is beneath their recognition, which is exactly why Activision Blizzard just tried to pawn off a mobile exclusive game to consumers who were largely PC exclusive gamers. After all, PC gamers are the also-rans for their console games. Why shouldn't we be the afterthought market for their mobile games as well? So we can add Blizzard Entertainment to the pile of ashes left by the rotting corpses of BioWare, Creative Assembly, and all the other PC-first game developers that have been assimilated into the fun-eating culture of gaming industry investment. Now, all this doesn't mean they're never again going to release a good game on the PC platform. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to resubscribing to World of Warcraft next year when they released Classic WoW, the game they made 4 years prior to merging with Activision. But I fully expect those unannounced Diablo projects we keep hearing about to tick off as many check boxes on the financial report as possible, which is why they can't announce those projects. Because when they announce a new project, they have to give their investors some indication of how it will impact their growth into the mobile market, and how it will impact the growth of digital revenue, and how it will impact the growth of esports. And my suspicion is Diablo Immortal will tell them a lot about how those upcoming games should be designed and monetized. I play video games exclusively on PC. I had a few consoles over the last 30 years, but I have no interest in console gaming. And I definitely have no interest in mobile gaming. I'll be 50 years old at the end of this year, and my neck is screwed up enough without looking down at a cell phone screen for hours at a time. Now, I first played Orcs vs. Humans back in 1994, and since that time, I've had at least one Blizzard game installed on my PC, and sometimes 3 or 4. Well, now I'm just down to one game again, Diablo 3. Because I want to play the latest season, but I just haven't gotten around to it. I've been busy playing Pathfinder Kingmaker and catching up on my shields for Division 2. And I have to admit, all this makes me kind of sad. When a game developer comes along and hits the right platform with the right games, it's a beautiful thing. I own every game that Blizzard released on PC, and most of those were pre-orders. Just like I own every game BioWare made before they were assimilated. This feels like the end of an era in PC gaming, and it's okay. These are just growing pains for a growing gaming industry. Blizzard North is long gone. Blizzard Entertainment has become Activision, and Activision is just a wannabe Electronic Arts. Who knows, will I be making another video like this about Obsidian Entertainment or In Exile? Only time will tell, but I suspect the answer is yes. It's a vicious circle. PC game developers make a great PC game and strike it rich. That attracts big investors who tell the PC game developer that PC gaming is all fished out. The mobile market and digital revenue is where all the growth is happening. So the game developer starts watering down their games, losing PC gamers in the process, and proving the investors right. It's just growing pains, folks. So with that, my watch begins with the hope that someday a game developer will come along and put its finger on the pulse of PC gaming. And hopefully, we'll get a good decade's worth of games out of that company before they too sell out to their investors. Until that day comes, my friends, this is Bitter Klinger, signing out.